We are still growing. If you haven't had James Hill smash that subscribe button, go ahead and have him smash it right now. First and foremost, let me give a shout out to the following patrons: Albert, Valentin, John Wick, Brenda, I'm a Cabron, Soul Store LA, my tocayo Hector, Coach Ken, Miguel L, AI Vega, Fio, Claudia, Miguel, let our actions lead others to Christ, Big Bad 48, Nova, Jack, Linda, Michigan Wolverines, Marius, Chevelle 66, Abuelita's Journey, and Douse Herrero. As you can see, that list is getting longer and longer. You do not want to be the only one not on it. Make sure you hit that link in the description below. This episode right here, man. Hector, you're an OG veterano. You've been around the block. Nah, not really. But I did see the California Department of Corrections change from the time that I came in 2006 as an officer and the time I resigned in 2022 as a lieutenant. 16 years. Validations. Validating gang members. Prison gang members. Before they were security threat groups labeled as STGs. What was that process like, Hector? When you had soldiers, soldados putting in work on the yard, ending up in ADSEG, whether it was A5 or C6, what was that process like validating them? What did it consist of? What did it look like? And where did they go afterwards? Well, I'm glad you asked, right? That's the whole point of this whole video. Okay. If you're from outside of California, I think by now that you have gathered that the Department of Corrections just moves different, operates different. I'm not even talking about the green side. I'm talking about the blue side. How the gangs are extremely structured, right? And if one person says go, everybody goes. If one person says no, nobody goes, right? It's kind of how that works. At that time, you had 2 prisons. Well, you probably had 3. My knowledge on Tehachapi Shoe is not, I don't have much knowledge on it, right? I did talk to people. They did tell me about Tehachapi Shoe, but I'm very well aware of Pelican Bay State Prison up on the border of Oregon, Security Housing Unit, and Corcoran, Central California, Security Housing Unit. Shoe. Believe that's where they said they had those gladiator fights. I think that's the one. Yeah, Corcoran. So, at that time, who you had there was the highest individuals of their said organizations, right? Aside from the highest, let's just say there's one step below the top rank, right? You got your number ones. That's all there really is, number ones, right? And then you have a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy because everybody else is going to fall below them, right? In that hierarchy, you have pretty much the right-hand man of these individuals at the highest level, right? For the sake of this video, let's just go ahead and call them camaradas. That's what we're going to refer to them in this video. Below the camaradas, you have your soldiers, right? To simplify things for you guys. Well, being a soldier isn't necessarily going to get you isolated, right? Because that's what the shoes security housing is. You were in isolation. 23-hour lockdown, Pelican Bay, playing basketball. Actually, I don't even think they had basketball. It came out in the movie Training Day. But, yeah, you're in your cell 23 hours. You're indoors 24 hours. It's crazy because I never personally stepped foot there, but from the documentaries that I've seen, they just pop your cell, you come out into this little tier, and then you go out to the yard. It's right there in the back. So how you land yourself there is by getting validated by a point system at that time. The point system has changed, right? And it has made it more difficult to get validated, right? Whether I agree or not, that's irrelevant. That's not the point of this story, right? So let's say I'm a young correctional officer and I look at a photo album. I'm not saying me particularly, I'm telling you how it goes down. I see a photo album and I see a picture of this guy with a heavy hitter. That could be used as 1 point, right? So as you can see, it's a bunch of points being stacked together. Once you hit a certain amount of points, I honestly can't even remember, right? I was never IGI. I was never the institutional gang investigator. I was never even ISU, Investigative Services Unit, Goon Squad. So having photographs, having artwork, you can have 2 lines and 3 dots, right? Representing the Aztec number for 13. Boom, another point. You can have a picture of a butterfly. Yeah, a butterfly. Boom, another point. You could have an address book, right? They have address books, right? Because they can't have cell phones, especially back then. So in the address book, you can have a name of somebody of power in your address book. Boom, another point. You can have a tattoo, right, of a G war shield, the Aztec war shield. Boom, another point. You can see how these points were adding up. So eventually, that's when the IGI swoops in, the institutional gang investigators. They are already keeping track. They already know who's who, what's what. Boom, just validated them. Okay, for them, that was their job. For them, they enjoyed it. They did. And you want to know what green side? Because like, hey, I mean, if I'm a car salesman, my job is to sell cars. Right? If I'm a gang investigator, my job is to validate inmates and send them off to the SHU. At that time, that was their job. Me as a line officer, maybe it's just my personality. I was more intrigued on understanding how everything worked. And that will keep me safe too, because I mean, when I was deployed in Iraq, I had to know what the enemy was doing, you know? So in prison, they're kind of the enemy wearing blue versus green, right? Being out now, I ain't going to be a part of that shenanigan show that Sacramento and headquarters wants to pit everybody together while they sip their lattes and laugh. And nah, miss me with all that. You can see. So your boy Hector was not over there. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. You guys want to know what green? You guys want to know what the hell we be doing when we searching the cells? I would sit down. I would just go through the photo albums. I would. The first time I ever said this publicly. I said it. I said what I said. So instead of like, sometimes I would look for dope, right? I mean, you're doing a cell search, especially like massive cell search, whatever. I did come across cell phones at times. I didn't even, there's spirit of the law, there's letter of the law. Remember back in the day when they used to pull you over drinking and driving? Back in the 80s, they say, hey, just pour your beer out right here, man, and make it home safely. I just used to dispose of the cell phones, right? Just throw them out on the 8 freeway. Throw them out on the 125 off a bridge. Didn't really write anybody up over it. Now you can't do that because there's body-worn cameras. You're going to get in trouble for doing that. That's why a lot of the times I tell you, don't do what I used to do. Just can't do it anymore. Kites. Huilas, little tiny kites. Now they got cell phones, so it's almost as those things are a thing of the past. Communication between inmates that were on general population yards, main lines, sending communication up to Pelican Bay and Corcoran, and communication coming back down. Hey, this is what we want you to do. We want you to send that guy to Brazil. Send that guy to Brazil. That's a new one that I've adopted. I like that one. It just makes me laugh internally, right? So we would come across kites. I was interested in kites because like I said, man, I was in Iraq. I wanted to know what my enemy was doing. That's why. I want to know, okay, who's moving, who, right? Mostly violence. Dope is dope. What do you want me to tell you? Like, we're going to stop drugs everywhere? Drugs are just pouring across the border, man. Rampant. Look at downtown San Diego, downtown LA. Back on point, Hector. So, a kite with names on it. A hit list. Let's just say there happened to be a hit list. Right? Green lighted individuals. Guys that have got a green light on them. It was nothing, sometimes, or what I came across. It was just names and AKAs. It didn't say, hey, take these guys out. It didn't say brutally murder these guys, brutally stab them. It's just a bunch of names, right? So you're like, oh, you kind of see what's going on. It's like a bad news list is what that is. Again, validation point. You get caught with stuff like that. What's it called? Communication. You get caught with corresponding with somebody of that power, letters that get shipped out. So I'm going to put you guys up on knowledge in game real quick. You know how when you're on a phone call and you want to make a three-way call, like, hey, hold on, let me put this other person on the line. Boom. You can put another third person on the call. That was one way of them being able to communicate undetected. Well, it's detected, but undetected. Right? If you're paying attention, you can catch on. Boom. Hey, okay, cool. I'm on the line now. Now you got a three-way phone call that was not supposed to be a three-way phone call. Mails, sending letters out. Letters, three. So you guys didn't think we'd be knowing. I think a lot of the things we just let slide because, right? I mean, it's the truth. Like, not slide. I mean, we're not going to let somebody go and get brutally murdered, but it's just a cat and mouse game. I'm telling you, it's a cat and mouse game. Let's say I am in prison as a soldier and my AKA is Bala from Brole, and I send a letter to a loved one out on the streets, a female. In turn, she rewrites that letter, boom, 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 and sends it to somebody of importance up in Pelican Bay. You see how that message just went from point A to point B to point C? Camarada status, point C. Sometimes I'm just wild with it. I'm sorry. But, yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I got the message. Boom, boom, boom. That took time, right? That took time. Now you got cell phones. Now you can possibly be having massive conference calls with people with a business, for sure. That put away a lot of people for a long time, that validation process. Were they in the mix? Yeah, they were in the mix, but that's just what that looks like. Were all of them in the mix? Maybe not all of them were in the mix, but hey, you get gaffled up. That's just the way it is. A lot of the times in prison, you're going to get gaffled up, and in hopes for you that it'll get sorted out on the back end. And somebody told me in an interview one time, like, hey, Hector, somebody that I interviewed that was previously on the blue side, why do they lie during RVRs? And I'm like, or why do the officers lie during rules violation reports, the 115s, the write-ups? Think of it as a disciplinary referral. If you're in school, you get in trouble, you get a write-up. I said, well, what do you mean? Give me an example. Well, if there's a riot and I was somewhat near the riot, but I was not actively participating, and I got written up, and the officer said that they seen me throwing punches when I was not. I said, oh, that's easy. When you get there, it's chaos. You just see a bunch of fighting bodies, right? Boom, pow, 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 stab. Everybody's down. Well, not everybody. Then you're as an officer, you get tunnel vision, auditory exclusion. You're panicking. You just came from Starbucks, working at Starbucks, making mocha lattes. You never seen somebody stab another person, right? You just lost your damn mind. Like, man, the worst I seen was a homeless person yelling profanities in my Starbucks dining area. So when the dust settles, you see bodies. You just, hey, pick one. You, and you, come here. You were part of it. What? I wasn't part of it. You were part of it. That's how that looks. Is that right? Is that wrong? Well, technically that's wrong, right? But if you're in the area, yeah, you were most likely involved. Sometimes they try to get out of technicalities like, oh, well, you didn't see me throw no punches because I never threw a punch. Well, that was 100% true. You were booting a guy in the head. Boom, boom, boom. So you see how that works? It's just a mess. It's a freaking mess. I don't got to deal with that anymore. It's a mess. Speaking of a mess, the message for today is, here's a message. And I told you guys I wasn't the type to go and bust people all the time. When I was young, did I find dope? Yeah, I found in visiting heroin. The guy with 2 big-ass bindles, the dude went to the hole. When I was young on Delta Yard Centinela, level 3 GP, I was walking by the cell. I smelled like, man, you know how they be having dispensaries these days? Well, that was a dispensary back in 2007. I smelled the marijuana. I said, get out of here. Put your hands behind your back. Pulled them out. Man, these dudes, it was right before evening chow. They were, it was after a visit. So, you know, should be coming in during visit. And I found the package, right? Like it was a bunch of weed that had just come in. They were like bagging it up, chopping it up, mixing it up to disperse it and sell it on the yard. Boom. That was a big weed bust that I did. Initially, right? Yeah. I found personally, my experience, that when people were more willing to talk to me, people were more willing to interact with me when I was legitimately not trying to fuck them over. Right? And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Hector, they're conducting a crime. You should fuck them over. Spirit of the law, letter of the law. Right? Spirit of the law has gotten me farther than I could ever imagine. I think that's how I'm able to have conversations with people that normally would not be able to have conversations with, right? I'm a straight shooter. What do you want me to tell you? Like, I like that insight, man. I like learning. I love learning. I love learning things like that. I fucking hated school. Absolutely hated school. But I like learning. So, that's the message for today. There's different ways to skin a cat. There's different ways to skin a cat. And I used to tell these young officers too. They'd be like, oh, I'm going to write this dude up for a tattoo gun. You know, as a supervisor, I'm like, all right, go ahead and write him up then. And then afterward, I'll be like, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, man. There's all kinds of ways you can handle this. Again, now, I can't really say that with the body-worn cameras. You're going to get screwed over. Maybe that is what it is now. I don't know. So with that, keep that in mind. Keep pushing forward.